the pain like.
Hey guys, dearyoongi here, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to be discussing some red flag traits that some K-pop stans have. This may sound familiar because I did do a similar style video last year titled Types of K-pop stans to Avoid. This is basically part 2 of that because I had many more to add. If there's any important ones you think I might have missed, check out that other video in case I mentioned them there, or let me know in the comments. Without further ado, let's get started. The first red flag we're going to discuss today is company stans who believe the K-pop company can do no wrong. For those who aren't aware of what a company stan is, it's exactly how it sounds. So you know how some of us stan our favourite groups regardless of what label they come from? There are also some K-pop fans out there who are company stan, who will support not just every group a specific company have, but the actual company themselves and everything they do. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I do not have any issues with standing every group under a particular K-pop label. If you do just happen to like all of their groups, that's great. But what I do have a problem with is when people blindly follow every decision a label makes and try to justify it, when sometimes their actions are just plain wrong. I personally think company standing perhaps originates from a place of trying to defend your favourite group and therefore having to justify the actions of the label to make sure your faves don't get any backlash. But I'd like to think that most K-pop stans are wise enough now to know that if a company makes a decision we may not agree with, then that is no reflection on the artist or their personal choice, because after all, we do know that for a lot of artists, their choices are still limited under their label. At the end of the day, I think it's safe to admit that we're aware a lot of companies are out here prioritizing profits over artists' well-being and what is right for them. So unquestioning support towards companies and everything they do under the excuse of it's just business can enable harmful practices to carry on. By holding companies accountable and voicing our concerns, we as fans can create a better industry that actually respects artists' rights moving forward. The next red flag for us to discuss is fans who hold grudges against artists who have apologised and refuse to accept their apology. I understand that this may be more of a controversial one, so I think I'd like to further elaborate on this and say I'm particularly talking about fans who hold grudges against artists who may have made a small mistake, apologised, and now learned from this and moved past it, improving themselves in the process. I of course do not mean to include serious crimes here, and if an idol has proven time and time again that they are not willing to learn from their mistakes or that their apologies are ingenuine, then I of course understand not wanting to accept their apologies. I don't like to use this as an excuse, but idols are humans and a lot of them debut young. It's very normal to make mistakes when you're a young person. I think most of us have done things when we were younger that we have now looked back on and either cringed at or regretted because we didn't know better at the time. Very often an incident occurs when an idol does something that upsets fans, they sincerely apologise and they promise not to do it again. And often they don't do it again and they move on and they improve themselves. But for some reason, sometimes this isn't enough for some K-pop fans and they choose to stay mad at them forever over something that might have happened 10-15 years ago, even when the idol has proven that they have grown from the event. It kind of gives off that feeling that some fans are just looking for something to be upset about. If an idol has made a genuinely minor mistake and has proven that they are sorry and have grown from it and worked on themselves, then I don't personally agree with not accepting the apology of somebody when they have clearly highlighted that it was a mistake that they won't make again. Some fans don't give idols a chance to right their wrong, and if we don't give them at least one chance to prove they have grown from whatever happened, again if it's not something super serious, then how are we supposed to expect them to develop as people? This next one really irks me. This is a massive red flag for me personally, and that is entitled fans who make newer stans feel uncomfortable for only just getting into a group or K-pop with the I've been here longer behaviour. Contrary to some beliefs, liking a group for longer does not necessarily always make you a better fan of them. That elitist approach some people have to a music genre is just baffling. This one makes me both angry and sad. It saddens me because I remember being a new K-pop stan and being so intrigued by everything going on around me and wanting to learn as much as possible. It would have made me feel so awful if there were elitist fans who had been into the genre for longer and basically gate-kept it from me. But I think the more angry side here comes from the complete lack of logic in acting like this. Surely as a fan, we want our faves to gain as many fans as possible to help further grow themselves as artists and progress their careers. Hitting potential new fans with the whole I know more than you so you can't speak at all behaviour is only going to to put off new fans because why would anybody want to enter a fandom that just seems completely hostile from the outset? Personally, I love when somebody asks me about a group I like, and I'm more than happy to help anybody get into an artist I love. And I've always really appreciated whenever I've said, oh, I'm interested in getting into whoever, and then the fandom has approached me like, how can I help? I find that so sweet, and it shows you just how passionate they are and how much they love their faves. Okay, next potential red flag in a K-pop stan for me is fans who refuse to listen to any music by a more popular group because they only stan smaller unknown groups. This kind of reminds me of the days where when I used to listen to pop music, some people would simply refuse to listen to whatever was charting well on like Billboard or the UK charts because they only listen to indie artists, as if they're trying to prove a point that all charting artists are manufactured and ungenuine, when in fact there are many singer-songwriters in the charts now. You know what I mean? Well, I can't believe it, but this also seems to be a thing a lot in K-pop too. It's like as soon as a group who were once seen as nugu gain a bit more popularity, a lot of K-pop stans will just straight up refuse to listen to them anymore because they want to only stan smaller groups and they kind of like shun anyone who's doing a bit better. To play devil's advocate for a quick minute, I think the thinking behind this is probably, well, those bigger artists are already doing well now. These smaller artists need more of my attention and support. And while that is true, I just don't find it fair that this comes at the expense of some artists who I'm sure will know better than anyone what it feels like to be starting out or getting less love and looking for that big break. And I'm not trying to play the blame game, but it's almost as if people have this animosity towards larger groups' success, and because they're looking for somebody to blame for nugu groups not succeeding, they just won't listen to bigger groups anymore in protest, when really it's not their fault. And just because a group you used to love when they were smaller now gets a bit more attention, that doesn't change anything you loved about them in the past. On a sort of similar note, the next red flag I want to discuss that I've spotted in some K-pop stans is people who stan just one group and then anti everybody else. Now, I know there is such a thing as casual K-pop stanning, where you're either here for just the music and don't really know much about the groups, or maybe you're just here for one artist in particular and you haven't looked into anyone further. And of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but it is very weird to me when you get a K-pop stan who picks one group in particular that they love, but then they declare everybody else irrelevant and terrible in comparison to that group. At first, I saw these kinds of people on social media and just assumed they were like troll accounts. You know, the sorts of people who comment on videos of artists like, oh, this is horrendous, insert artist here is better. But when you look at some of the profiles of these people and you see them in action, the horrific reality is that some of these people are genuinely serious and they do feel like this. And they think the best way to support their favorite group is by bringing down every other group around them, when really that is probably the worst way to do it. All you're doing is making your fandom look bad, and I know for a fact whichever group it is that you've decided to stan, they would not condone that sort of behaviour. They don't want their fans to be acting like that. This sort of behaviour is the sort of thing I expect to see from non-K-pop fans who say all of K-pop is trash, blah blah. Not K-pop fans who have gone out of their way to pick a group that they like and then just want to hate on everyone else, when the majority of the time they don't even know anything about the groups they're hating. It's just nonsensical. Okay, moving on, another red flag for me in K-pop stans is fans who believe their fave can do absolutely no wrong and will defend them to the death. This feels like a topic I've touched on before, but I think this one comes down to something simple, and that is holding people accountable when necessary. I think some K-pop stans mistake being a good fan as meaning defending your faves throughout any and every controversy. But if in this particular scenario, the person you love so much is actually in the wrong, it's okay to admit that. Regardless of how much you love an artist or a person, I strongly believe nobody is immune to criticism where it is rightfully deserved. The truth does hurt, but sometimes I feel it is absolutely necessary, and sometimes we as individuals do need to hear it, whether we're gonna like it or not. This is the only way that we can grow and progress. When you apply this logic to something like K-pop, this can be things as simple as being able to admit when your faves release music you don't like. It's absolutely fine to say, you know what, I wasn't keen on this song. I've done it many times. It doesn't suddenly mean you hate them. I think the best way I try to put this for people who think they're doing the right thing by their faves by always defending their wrongs is like this. If an artist acts in a way that may offend some people, you're probably doing them more of an injustice by not telling them or letting them know, because how are they ever going to develop as people or learn from their mistakes if we just constantly mollycoddle them and try to justify everything they do ever? Sometimes people do need to learn the hard way how to fix their behavior, and that is how we get better and make sure the same mistakes don't occur in future. And last but not least, another red flag in K-pop stans for me is fans who get angry at their faves for dating. I think I must talk about this all the time in like every video where I can bring it up. And I'm so sorry if I'm starting to sound like a broken record. It just frustrates me that K-pop idols are not allowed to live normal lives outside of their work. And something as normal as finding a significant other is made out to be the biggest tragedy of all time. It's giving, I see my faves as a puppet, I control them and their lives, so because I don't approve of them dating, then they shouldn't. And I have to keep bringing this up because there's still K-pop fans out here who think the appropriate reaction to a musician they have loved for years getting married to the love of their life is, I'm going to burn your albums and start petitions for your career to end. That sudden switch up is so scary to me. It's like, how genuine was your love for the artist in the first place? This is still happening all the time. Dongwoon of the group Highlight recently announced that he would be getting married in September, and although some fans were of course happy for him, he further felt the need to have to issue an apology letter to fans. What does he actually have to be sorry for? Sorry that I am happy? Sorry that I have a life outside of music promotions? Idols are human beings with emotions and personal lives outside of their careers, and fans sometimes need to remind themselves that supporting an idol in their music activities also means supporting them in their personal lives in terms of their happiness and well-being. The same sort of thing we're always pushing their companies to do. How hypocritical of us would it be to constantly complain about companies making our faves unhappy, to then turn around and say, well, of course we want you to be happy, but only if you're alone. The irony writes itself. Okay guys, and that was it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching if you got this far. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And I would love to hear your thoughts on the comments. Do you agree that these are red flags? Or can you think of any others that have always just stood out to you? If you're new here and haven't yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button down below and turn on the notification bell. That should let you be the first to hear whenever I upload. And I will see you next time. Bye guys!